Hello dear students, welcome to Bajirao IAS Academy, the Hindu news analysis. So today is 8th June 2024 and today we have some important and interesting news articles from different newspapers. So we'll try to cover all those important news articles in an exam relevant manner, and before discussing them we have few practice questions that I've given one practice question for prelims yesterday. So the question was consider the following countries and how many of the countries share their border with Lebanon. Now time and again I've been telling you that Middle East is very important, especially the geography and the political map of all the countries in the Middle East is very important for the examination perspective. Especially in the backdrop of recent volatility and instability in the Middle East, there is a probability that you may get questions on this Middle East, because every year you can see at least one question from this Middle East part. So because of that reason, our effort is to make sure that you get to identify all the countries and all the important political regions in the Middle East. So the question was consider the following countries and how many of the above countries share their border with Lebanon. So this was the question. So if you look at the options here, Turkey, Syria, Jordan and Israel, right? So we'll go to the map and we'll see how many of these countries shares their borders with Lebanon. So again I'm telling you that Lebanon is part of Middle East, right? So this is where Lebanon is located and the capital of Lebanon is Beirut. Okay, so if you look at Lebanon, it has been sharing its borders with Syria on its north and western side, and on the western side, north and eastern side, it has been sharing its borders with Syria. On the western side, it is sharing its borders with the Mediterranean Sea, and on the southern side, it has been sharing its borders with Israel. So therefore, in all given options, now if you can see Turkey, so Turkey is located above Syria, so therefore Lebanon is not directly sharing its borders with the Turkey. And on the other hand, Jordan is also being asked, and Jordan is also not sharing any of its borders with the Lebanon. But on the other hand, you have to understand here, Hezbollah is one of the militant group, so that has been in news because it has conducted a series of attacks on Israel also because of Israel's retaliation on this Gaza Strip, right? So therefore, in this context, only with two countries that were given over there, Lebanon has been sharing its borders. So those are Syria and Israel. So therefore, Syria and Israel, not any other countries. And the correct answer for this question is option B, only two. And today also I have one more important practice question. So we'll discuss that. Now look at the Middle East, right? So go through all the countries in the Middle East and also identify the countries in the Middle East with which they are sharing their borders. And apart from that, you should also identify where this Gulf of Aden is located, where this Persian Gulf is located, where this Strait of Hormuz is located, Red Sea, and different regions have to be identified because they are very important for the examination, from the examination point of view, right? So today also I have one more important practice question. So World Health Organization publication known as WHO Blue Books, so is related to which of the following? So WHO Blue Books is related to which of the following? And this is also very important question. And options here, A, mental health, B, cancer, C, air pollution, and D, hepatitis. So try to answer this question in the comment section. Please answer this question. Try to answer this in the comment section, and I will provide you the explanation and correct answer in tomorrow's class. And today we'll start this discussion talking about the center-state relations, especially in the backdrop of 18th Lok Sabha elections and the declaration of elections. Because see, the BJP is very often known for centralization of powers, right? So it is also accused of depriving states of its powers, especially states which are being ruled by the opposition political parties. And in this context, after the Lok Sabha poll results were declared recently on June 4th, so no party, in fact BJP falls short of majority. Now how the experts views this and what is the impact of center-state relations on recent election verdict from different states, how regional political parties have been playing a very important role, and how the current NDA government already elects Prime Minister Narendra Modi as a Prime Minister, but this could be a coalition government because BJP falls short of the majority required to form government on its own. And therefore, the regional parties, for example, JDU from Bihar and TDP from Andhra Pradesh, are going to play a very important role at the central level. So therefore, we'll understand the center-state relations in this present context. So the author has been talking about the recent election results of 2024. So is a major surprise. So it is a major surprise for everyone. Political parties, the candidates contested, and even for the people also. Because this results of 18th Lok Sabha elections actually have shown a greater democratization in the country. So they indicate the greater democratization and democratic aspirations of the people from different corners. Because so if you look at the election results, regional parties have done very well in this Lok Sabha elections. And regional parties, when I say, DMK has performed very well, and apart from DMK, Telugu Desam Party of Andhra Pradesh and Trinamool Congress has also performed very well. So therefore, we can see that there is a trend where regional parties have been getting good number of seats, and their proportion or their participation at the central level is also increasing. Right? So therefore, these regional parties will share a space with the ruling party at the center. And not just the ruling party, but even if you look at the opposition INDIA coalition or alliance. So there are regional parties, number of regional parties come together, they have formed this INDIA alliance. And therefore, the authors have been suggesting that this will particularly strengthen federalism. The federal structure will be strengthened when the regional parties have been getting more number of seats, because that represents the regional aspirations of the people. So that gets adequate attention, right? So which is federalism is very crucial for a diverse nation such as India. So India is a diverse nation. So for such a diverse nation like India, federalism is very, very important. And this particular election results reflects that India's federalism holds a lot of importance. However, in recent times, we very often see that there is, asymmetrical federalism. Asymmetrical federalism in the sense that the powers are being concentrated at the center or with the center. And recently, we have also observed there are a lot of complaints from different states, and most of these states are opposition-ruled states. Now, what are those complaints? For example, Kerala has complained about the inadequate transfer of resources from the center to state. And similarly, Karnataka has also highlighted the issue of drought relief. The center has either delaying or not providing the drought relief to the state, and that has resulted in the relief effort is not being undertaken by the state government in an efficient manner. And followed by Karnataka, the Trinamool Congress ruled West Bengal has also raised concerns about the funding of Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Program. Right? So all these complaints from different states, particularly the opposition party ruled states, actually showed that, they are showing that the opposition ruled states are in a bad light. Okay, so after that, when we talk about the center-state relations, the relations between the central government and state government since last one decade, so it has become a contentious issue even during the election campaigning also. Okay, so several political parties, especially the regional political parties, have raised this regional aspirations or regional issues during the political campaigning, and because of that reason, so they have become a contentious issue during the election campaigning. Now, when we look at the ruling party's election campaigning ideas like one nation, one election or simultaneous polls, so they plan to conduct these simultaneous polls. Now, simultaneous polls in the sense that for all states, general elections and the state legislative assembly elections will be conducted simultaneously, and that is simultaneous election or one nation, one election. And in fact, the ruling party is very often campaigned for this one nation, one election. And even threats against opposition leaders were perceived as a threats to the opposition ruled states also. Okay, so in recent times, and in fact, so there are a lot of opposition ruled states across the country, and these opposition ruled states have complained that the central government has been showing this stepmotherly treatment against those opposition ruled states. And in fact, because of this particular attitude of the central government, most of the states, including Delhi government, okay, so they are leading to protests in Delhi and other state capitals also. For example, when we talk about the Kerala, which is being ruled by the CPIM, and Trinamool Congress of West Bengal, and even Tamil Nadu by DMK. So all these states have felt that the center has been treating them or showing them this stepmotherly treatment. So after that, in recent times, there is also a financing related conflicts. They also started emerging. Okay, as I've already told you that Kerala has talked about this, inadequate devolution of funds from the center to the states. So that is a problem here. Wait. Okay, right. Sorry. Okay, so when we talk about the financing, the state, different states have also accused that the central government has not been providing adequate funding to these state governments, and that is a problem here. So therefore, states have been facing a lot of issues when it comes to financing education, healthcare, and even social services independently. And apart from that, they are also facing problems when it comes to financing infrastructure, water sharing, and they mostly require the interstate agreements when it comes to the water sharing. So when we do not have the adequate cooperation from the center, so that will be problematic for the respective state governments. And in fact, if you look at the financing powers and the responsibilities with respect to center and states, so when we talk about the central governments have a more financing powers, a more authority than responsibilities, but state governments have more responsibilities and they have lesser finances to fulfill those responsibilities, and that is where it has resulted in a conflict between center and state governments. And in fact, so when we talk about the issues which are with the center, currency and defense, so they also require a common approach which is being managed by the center. And apart from that, so whenever we talk about the expenditure, these expenditure needs to be financed through taxes, non-tax sources, borrowings, and they very often lead to the conflict between the center and state governments. Now, a financial transfer or finance transfer is a very contentious issue between the center and state governments, because the southern states very often making allegations against the center that despite the southern states have been contributing more revenues, they have been getting a very less devolution from the respective finance commissions. So this they are also accusing the center of showing a discriminatory attitude towards them. So despite contributing more revenues, the center has not been devolving them enough revenues, and that has effectively resulted in they were not able to make investments in the infrastructure development. However, in this context, we need to understand the role of the central government. What exactly is the role of the central government? Now, when we talk about the financial, authority or financial powers of the central government, center predominantly collects major taxes. Okay, so due to efficiency, including personal income tax, corporation tax, customs duty, and excise duty, so all these major taxes are collected by the central government. Right, but on the other hand, state governments have a limited authority with respect to the collection of revenues. So in fact, the goods and services tax is also collected by both center and state governments. So they together collect the goods and services tax. There is an integrated GST and state GST also, right? So GST is collected by both center and state governments. And apart from that, center controls most of the revenues. Then the state governments, and it devolves funds to states as per their responsibilities. Right. So again, I'm reiterating that state governments have more responsibilities and less financial powers. But on the other hand, the central government have more financial powers and less responsibility when we compare the center and state governments. So therefore, the state governments are arguing that they need to have a more financial powers in the spirit of true federalism. And at the same time, there should not be any discriminatory attitude between different states when it comes to the devolution of funds and finances. And after that, there are also a lot of interstate tussles between different states with respect to land border issues, water sharing. Right. So water sharing, we have a very often seen disputes between Karnataka and Tamil Nadu, and Andhra Pradesh and Odisha. So there are a lot of disputes with respect to the water sharing, and recently in Northeast also we have seen the land border disputes between these different states. So there are number of interstate tussles, and center state relations have also been facing a lot of issues. Okay, so we'll understand that what are these interstate tussles and center state relations. Now, when we look at the state governments, states cannot have a common position because all the states are not adequately or equally developed. Okay, for example, there are certain Bimaru states, so which are these Bimaru states are backward. But on the other hand, these southern states are comparatively well off when we compare these southern states with the northern Indian Bimaru states. So therefore, different states across the country have a different stages of development, and their resource positions are also different. So because of that reason, we cannot see states have a common position because of these differences. Now, when we talk about rich states, for example, southern Indian states, and apart from these southern Indian states, Gujarat is considered as a rich state, Haryana and Punjab. So there are a lot of rich states, and these rich states contribute more revenues, but they receive a very less fraction of revenues from the center. And this particular resentment among the rich states, that they have been contributing more but they receive a very less amount of finances from the center, despite poorer states providing them with the markets and contributing to their growth. Okay, so it is also said that, okay, it is true that rich states have been contributing more but they have been receiving less. But on the other hand, when we talk about the markets, the poor states have been more marketing opportunities. So therefore, for rich states, poor states have been providing markets and they are aiding in their growth. So by this, the author has been suggesting that there is no point, suffering or a feeling that we are getting lesser, because poorer states have been providing markets and providing more and more opportunities for the growth to these rich states. And in fact, the Finance Commission also tries to develop or devolve more funds to the poorer states. Right, so a per capita income, number of populations, all these factors are taken into consideration whenever Finance Commission making devolution of funds. Okay, so this has been done, the Finance Commission has been doing this to reduce inequality. But if you look at the gap between the developed states and the developing states, it remains still wide. So there is a need to bridge this gap between different states. However, we very often hear that the central government very often giving a call for double engine ki sarkar. So this double engine ki sarkar, generally means that states with the same ruling party as the center. Okay, for example, when we talk about the UP is ruled by the BJP, and center is also BJP is in power. Okay, so those double engine ki sarkar governments, the states with this double engine sarkar will benefit more, and that has been undermining the opposition ruled states. Okay, so that has been undermining the credibility of opposition ruled states, and this particular approach is also weakening the federalism and also reducing the state autonomy as well. Now there are a lot of issues in federalism, so we need to understand those issues also. Okay, what are those issues within the federalism? For example, a finance commission has understood the needs of the different state governments. So therefore, what finance commission has done, so increasing the devolution of resources from the center to states beyond the current 41% could reduce the center's dominance. Okay, so a devolution of funds should be more than 41% to the states, and we must reduce the dominance of center when it comes to the devolution of finances, since state governments have more responsibilities and more functions to do, or more responsibility to deliver. So therefore there is a need that we need to increase the total devolution to the states so that they can deliver their responsibilities in a much more efficient manner. And in fact, there are a number of joint schemes like the public distribution system and Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act. So they often see center asserting credit, penalizing the non-compliant states. Okay, so they are being viewed as center asserting its credit powers and also penalizing the non-compliant states. Now the center's assertiveness with respect to public funds which are collected from and spent in states undermines the federalism. So therefore it is very important that we must protect federalism, the federal principles, and the central government should not undermine the powers of the state governments. And apart from that, utilization of countries' resources should be jointly decided by the center and states. There should not be excessive powers with the center government whenever it comes to the spending of these financial resources or any other resources. So it should be jointly decided by the both center and state governments. So for this particular purpose, the interstate councils which were created through 260 second constitution, article 262, so they have to be utilized, and zonal councils can also be utilized, right? So whenever we talk about the utilization of countries resources, it should be decided by both center and states as equal partners. So therefore this has become more feasible with the changed political situation following the 2024 general election results. And these 2024 general election results have been showing that there is a need for the collaborative and cooperative federalism for a diverse and democratic India. Both center and state governments should work in the spirit of this collaborative federalism. And that is how we can overcome the existing issues within the center and state governments. So that is how we can achieve most of our aspirations and become the third largest economy in a very near future. And next, a very important article is with respect to the global plastic treaty or plastic pollution. Okay, so the authors have been talking about the global plastic treaty and remolding this global plastic treaty in such a manner to recognize the informal workers who are engaged in managing the plastic pollution, segregating, recovering, recycling the plastic pollution. We need to address their livelihoods issues. We need to enhance the safety and security of those workers who have been engaged in treatment, collection, recycling of plastic waste. So this is very important, and global plastic treaty must recognize those informal workers, and we'll briefly understand this through the context. So the context is that according to Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, so it releases Global Plastic Outlook, right? So the Global Plastic Outlook is released by Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. So this particular report has been shedding some light on the plastic pollution across the world. So it has been telling us that the global plastic production, so the global plastic waste was 353 million tons, right? So it is a huge 353 million tons of plastic waste in 2019, and it is more than double, so since it was in 2000, and is set to triple by 2060. So it's set to increase by 2060. And in fact, only 9% of this plastic waste which is being generated is recycled every year, and 50% is sent to landfills, open landfills. Okay, so where the waste is not treated. So the waste is just dumped in a landfills that we mostly see in our municipal areas. And very often these landfills very often look like a mountains with lot of waste. And 9% of the plastic waste which is being generated is incinerated, and 22% is disposed in an uncontrolled sites and dumps. So whenever the plastic is incinerated, it actually releases harmful gases into the environment. So that will also have the effects like global warming, and it also harmful for the health of the people. However, according to the United Nations Environment Program, of the 9% of the plastic which is being recycled across the world, so 85% was done by the informal recycling workers, and that point to be noted here. Because out of the 9% of the plastic waste which is being recycled, so 85% is being done by the informal workers. Now informal workers in the sense that these informal workers do not have any social security or safety nets. They do not have any fixed income, and they do not recycle the plastic waste in a scientific manner. However, this global plastic treaty which is going to be signed must recognize the contribution of the informal workers. And in fact, these workers collect, sort, separate and recover the recyclable and reusable materials from the general waste. Okay, so they actually segregate the recyclable and recoverable plastic materials from the general waste. Now what has been doing by this, they are alleviating the municipal budgets of financial burdens. So this essentially means that they are helping the municipal bodies by segregating or managing the plastic waste, and at the same time they are also subsidizing the environmental mandate of the producers, consumers, and even the government also, and playing a very important role when it comes to the management of plastic pollution by recovering and segregating the recyclable and reusable plastic material from the general waste. And in fact, Center for Environment, Justice and Development has also made a similar observations. In fact, these informal workers have been promoting this circular waste management solution. Now, what are the circular waste management solutions? For example, when we talk about this plastic pollution, not a single use plastic, but when we talk about this plastic pollution, recover, reuse, recycle. Okay, like this is a circular. Okay, so first we use, and then we recover, then reusing it and recycling it, right? So this is how the circular economy usually works. And informal workers plays a very important role in promoting the circular waste management solutions, and they also help mitigating the greenhouse gases. How they are helping? Because so when the recyclable and reusable material is segregated from the general waste, whenever it is burnt in the open landfill sites or in incinerators, so it will not generate enough greenhouse gases and even valuably contributing to the sustainability of the environment. Because plastic has a lot of negative implications on the environment, and when they have been contributing with respect to separating this recyclable plastic, so their contribution is immense to the environment. And the efforts that are put in by these informal workers are significantly reducing the plastic pollution or plastic content in landfills and dump sites, and they also play a very important role in preventing the plastic leaking into the environment. Because we all knew that the plastic pollution is it is non-biodegradable, right? So it is non-biodegradable waste. So since it is non-biodegradable waste, so it has been entering into the food chain through biomagnification. We very often hear about these terms called biomagnification and bioaccumulation, right? So what are these? Biomagnification and bioaccumulation through microplastics have been entering into the human populations from one trophic giant to the another trophic level, from one organism to another organism, right? So this biomagnification and bioaccumulation are one of the key aspects here, which have been leading to the accumulation of microplastics among the body parts of different organisms. However, the informal workers have been facing several risks from increasing privatization of waste management, because they are informal workers and they lack job security, they lack social security, and they even lack the proper healthcare benefits. And after that, the waste to energy or incineration projects are being developed in recent times, and which those projects are not recognizing the informal workers' contribution and their experience. And apart from that, there is also an exclusion through other public policy interventions when it comes to the management of the plastic waste. The government has not been recognizing these informal workers when it comes to the setting up norms for the extended producer responsibility. Now, right, what exactly is this extended producer responsibility? For example, imagine that there is a company A. This company produces a lot of plastic, and at the end of the day, it is the responsibility of the company A to collect the used plastic and recycle it, so that the plastic will not harm the environment. And in this extended producer responsibility norms, we must recognize the role and experiences of the informal workers. However, the informal workers recovery sector, because they are recovering the plastic waste from the general waste. So this informal workers recovery sector is more than a minor player in the worldwide municipal solid waste management systems, because they play a very immense, they contribute to the plastic waste management, and their contribution is immense in nature. And if you look at the worldwide, the informal workers recovery sector contribution, so this particular sector has been accounting for 80% of the municipal solid waste recovery across many cities, not just in India, but across many cities. And apart from that, around 60 million tons of plastic from the municipal solid waste, so they actually pollute the environment. So pollution of environment includes the pollution of water bodies, pollution of soil, and when they are burnt on the landfills, they even pollute the air also. Okay, so the pollution is mainly because of inadequate machinery with respect to the collection services and mismanagement of the solid waste also. Now, in this context, there are wide variety of strategies to reduce the plastic pollution, which often neglect the recovery capacities. Okay, so when we are talking about the informal workers, plastic waste management by the informal workers, so what we very often neglect or forget is that the capacities among these informal workers, their skills and their knowledge of the informal workers recovery sector. And this lack of regulatory oversight actually worsens the livelihood vulnerabilities of people who have been engaged in this recovery sector, and it has been also undermining the existing informal recovery systems across the world. However, the world has been talking about the Global Plastic Treaty, and this Global Plastic Treaty is actually a significant and a very important attempt, so especially to establish a legally binding agreement with respect to the plastic pollution, which is aiming at reducing and eliminating the global plastic pollution. Okay, so far we do not have any such treaty to manage plastic pollution, because plastic pollution is one of the major threat that the humanity has been facing. Okay, so because it has been polluting the entire environment, and such treaty is definitely a welcome step from the global community. And at the same time, it should be a legally binding agreement, so that is aimed at reducing and eliminating the plastic pollution. And apart from that, this Global Plastic Treaty is also advocates that it should include the waste pickers perspectives whenever they are formulating different provisions under this Global Plastic Treaty. So they should also include the waste pickers perspectives. Okay, rag pickers who generally, people who segregate or separate the plastic, recoverable, reusable plastic material from the general waste. So they must include solutions at every stage and policy and even the law implementation also. And this is one thing that must be welcomed here, because so they plan to include the perspectives of the rag pickers, perspectives of the informal workers, sector. So these measures actually aim to acknowledge the waste pickers' historical contribution with respect to collection of the plastic waste and recycling of plastic waste. So therefore, it is very, very important to protect their rights and promote effective and sustainable plastic management practices across the world through this plastic treaty. However, in this context, India's voice is very, very important and very crucial. So when we talk about India's voice with respect to the global plastic treaty or informal workers, now what exactly India's opinion on this, India's views on this? So India, in fact, one of the key representative with respect to the global plastic treaty, and India is also committed to eliminate the plastic pollution. So India is one of the key representatives of the global south. And apart from that, India promotes an approach that enhances repair, reuse, refill, and recycling of the plastic without actually necessitating or necessarily eliminating the use of plastics. Now, India has not been advocating the altogether elimination of plastic. Rather, India has been advocating that we must promote the repair, reuse, refill, and recycling of the plastic waste. So that is how we have to address the plastic problem. Because see, so when we altogether eliminate the plastic, we do not have the sustainable alternatives as of now. We should also focus on technologies which further encourage alternatives to plastic. Only then we can think of altogether eliminating the plastic pollution. And apart from that, India has also very often stressing on the issue of adopting the country specific circumstances and the capacities. For example, we need to talk about the common but differentiated responsibilities with respect to the climate change and global warming. And in a similar lines, when we talk about the global plastic treaty, India has been stressing on adopting a country specific circumstances and capacities. And in fact, India is a country where informal workers have a huge contribution with respect to the plastic waste management. So therefore, the informal waste pickers is the central to the whole discussion in India. So therefore, we must rethink the formulation of extended producer responsibility norms and also raise questions on how to integrate these informal workers into the new global legal framework of managing the plastic pollution. So apart from that, the global instrument to end the plastic pollution can enable a just transition of nearly 15 million people who informally collect and recover up to 58% of the globally recycled waste. So thereby shaping a sustainable future. And apart from that, when we talk about the informal workers, we must incorporate their perspectives in the global plastic treaty. And we should also ensure that their livelihoods are adequately protected. And this treaty can also include or inculcate the social justice and equity principles that actually benefit the lives and livelihoods of the rag pickers or informal waste, informal plastic waste segregators. And this approach must follow the principle of leaving no one behind. So in line with the environmental justice and climate justice. So that's all about the global plastic treaty and management of the plastic pollution and informal workers' contribution in the plastic waste management, and what exactly is India's perspective with respect to the global plastic treaty. And the next, a very important article, is with respect to the unsafe food and how this unsafe food consumption has been causing deaths across Asia Pacific. Right? So what exactly is this context? So recently, a data has been a report from a data from one particular report has been suggesting that unsafe food consumption leads to the millions of people falling sick each year. So this is particularly widely prevalent in this Asia Pacific region. However, according to the latest figures, around 2,25,000 people die each year from these foodborne illness in Asia and Pacific regions. So this is a huge number, that 2,25,000 people each year dying because of this unsafe food consumption. It is particularly concerning issue. So therefore, it has been accounting for more than half of the global fatalities. However, nearly a third of those who perish, 30%, are children. So that is especially a cause of concern, and this has been highlighting the gravity of this situation. Now, what are the major hazards of this unsafe food consumption? Now, first and foremost, we need to understand, what is food poisoning? Now, food poisoning is very often caused by eating food that has encountered traces of human or animal feces. So human and animal feces very often contaminate the food, and that will lead to the different diseases once we get infected, once we have consumed the unsafe food. Okay, so this could happen because of improper storage, and while cooking also standards are not maintained properly, and food adulteration. So all these factors have been leading to the food poisoning. And food adulteration is one problem where food quality is significantly reduced and food standards are also very often compromised, and that would lead to the food poisoning also. Now, how a food poisoning and consumption of unsafe food is considered as a threat to the health and economy of the people? So there is no doubt that whenever any individual consumes unsafe food, so it causes a lot of health impacts among the people. And apart from that, so whenever any person fall ill because of the consumption of unsafe food, that will significantly reduces the productivity of the individual. And when there are more instances of poor quality food or food poisoning, the overall aggregate productivity of the economy would also reduces. So therefore, overall, this disproportionately affects the vulnerable and marginalized people, especially women and children who are at more risk. And this recent report has also been suggesting that most of the children who died because of unsafe food consumption. Okay, so especially women and children, as well as populations confronting natural disasters and conflicts also. For example, in Africa, there are countries which have been facing a lot of conflicts and civil war-like situations. So they also very often consume the unsafe food, and that would further leads to the various problems. So we need to overcome these hazards. We need to focus on providing affordable, accessible, quality food to everyone. We need to ensure food security along with providing quality food with adequate nutrition. So these hazards can in most cases be overcome by improper food handling. So improper food handling including better hygiene practices for those preparing the food, and proper refrigeration for edible items that need to be kept in cold and frozen conditions. And after that, we must talk about the role of governments and private sector when it comes to the food quality or consumption of safe food items. So in this context, we must focus on strengthening the food control systems. So in India, we have Food Safety and Standards Authority of India that regulates the food processing and also sets standards for various food products. So in this context, governments can immediately intervene, and they should strengthen national food control systems. So strengthening national food control systems also include the surveillance, better surveillance, and even improving the communication with the food businesses and publics, and also enhancing the awareness or creating awareness among the people about the quality of food, and immediately taking a strict and stringent actions against the food adulteration, especially the food processing units which produce adulterated food. And after that, we should also focus on improving the food safety standards, and they are also very, very important. So there is also a business case for improving the food safety standards in Asia and Pacific regions, because there is a huge mortality that is being caused by unsafe food consumption. And in fact, this particular enforcement of the standard should actually begin at a place at source where food is being produced, and it should be extended to those handling the food and continue along the entire value chain until it reaches the retailer and the consumer. So after that, the food standards and safety management is also very, very important here. Food standards, especially those of internationally recognized correct elementaries, so they ensure fair practices in food trade, and therefore food processing standard setting and safety management must be complied with the codex alimentarius. So therefore, that is how we can ensure better standards for food consumption, and we can also reduces the unsafe food entering into the market and consumed by the people, so ultimately protecting the lives, especially the vulnerable sections, women and children. And we can also reduces the impact of unsafe food consumption on the economy as well. So that's all in this lecture, and thank you so much. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel and also hit the like button. Thank you.